Hello, Facebook. I'm Evan Dashevsky, features editor with PCMag.com. This is Sasha Segan, senior mobile analyst here at PCMag, and you are watching Random Access, our daily show here on Facebook, where we do a deep dive into one very cool thing. But perhaps that isn't as much a thing as it's a network that's in the air. It's invisible. You can't really see it. It's all around us, though.
It's an invisible thing that surrounds me.
We'll get into that in a minute. But first, we wanted you to know that you should be dropping your comments, questions about this very cool invisible thing in the comments. Social Pete will read them throughout the show. Sasha, what magical invisible thing that surrounds all of us are we talking about today?
So recently I was asked to take another look at Google Fi, Google's wireless carrier.
And here we have it right here, correct?
Yeah, well this is a phone running Google Fi right now. And like you can see in the Project Fi application, the interface, which is one of the great things about Project Fi.
Okay.
And yeah, so we took after reviewing it 2 years ago, we took a fresh look at Project Fi in light of a bunch of new features and the results of our Reader's Choice survey this year to see why people love it so much. Essentially, we gave it a kind of mediocre review 2 years ago because it has a very limited set of phones. Right now, it is only available on the Pixel phones.
Okay.
You have to buy a Pixel phone. At the time, we were a little down on it for not being as cheap as we thought it could be. But our opinion has really turned around in the past couple of years with the improvement of Google Fi coverage, some new features, and also just looking at the feedback from our readers, from Google Fi users about how much they love this service.
But before we jump into what was changed in the last 2 years and how much people love it, let's explain how does it different from, say, your AT&Ts and Verizons? What is different about it?
Okay, so there are 5 companies that run most of the physical cell phone networks in the United States. And they are AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, and U.S. Cellular. Now, you may not be as familiar with U.S. Cellular as you are with the other 4. U.S. Cellular is the last of the big regional carriers. And if you go over to our big board here, you'll see the areas that U.S. Cellular covers. This is going to become important in about 5 minutes. So you see that they have coverage in northern New England, eastern North Carolina,
the darker green areas.
Yeah, a big chunk of the Midwest here. You know, some of the Pacific Northwest. They typically cover rural and small city areas that, for instance, Sprint and T-Mobile are weaker on. So, along with those 5, there are a whole bunch of other brands out there called MVNOs, or Mobile Virtual Network Operators. And these are companies that are either owned by the Big 4, or they essentially rent time from the Big 4.
Your Boosts and things like that. Yeah,
Boost and Virgin are owned by Sprint. Metro PCS is owned by T-Mobile. You have smaller names out there like Red Pocket, H2O Wireless, TracFone, of course.
Sure.
Net 10. There's dozens of these, all of whom rent time from the big carriers, and that includes Google Fi. But Google Fi does something truly unique.
Okay.
Google Fi is the only MVNO that seamlessly combines 3 of the 5 major carriers.
Okay.
It using special software that only works on the Pixel, and that is works on the Pixel and some older Nexus phones that are no longer for sale. So of stuff currently for sale only on the Pixel. So using special software, they seamlessly switch between T-Mobile, Sprint, and U.S. Cellular as if they are all the same carrier. And that is something that all the other MVNOs essentially have to pick a side.
Right.
You have to pick. You know, am I going to be on the Verizon network? Am I going to be on the Sprint network? Am I going to be on the T-Mobile network?
No, I see we have a question, but I want to let's get to that second. Now, my understanding is that people have to choose, not just contractual, is that the antennas can only pick up so many signals. So there's something special in the hardware that allows it to get all those different bands that are across the spectrum.
There are a couple of phones out there that support all 5 national networks. The Pixels are some of them, but also, for instance, the Samsung Galaxy S7 and S8.
Well, could you download an app for Google Fi on those phones? Okay,
Google only supports these phones.
Gotcha.
Okay. Or I believe the Moto E4 supports all 4 networks. Certain models of iPhones, but not others, support all 4 networks.
So it's a software thing that's stopping these all banned phones, if that's the term, from getting onto the Google Fi network.
Right.
Okay.
Only Google Fi's special firmware negotiates some complex sort of software eddies and shoals about merging the coverage so it looks seamless.
Gotcha. Pete, was there a question?
There was a question, but you answered it about
Okay.
whether non-Google phones would be able to use it.
So now it turns out that you can pop a Google Fi SIM into a non-Google phone, and it will just it'll just function on T-Mobile.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You lose the other 2 networks. It's just on T-Mobile that way.
Okay, well, there you go.
So there you go.
Okay, so in the last 2 years, Google Fi has gotten this agreement with U.S. Cellular. That was the big change that happened.
Right. It started out with Sprint and T-Mobile, which are both, those are our 2 lower cost networks, but there also are 2 networks that have poorer rural coverage than AT&T and Verizon. And one of the things that Google Fi got in the past couple of years was the addition of U.S. Cellular.
So this is the Google Fi coverage
This is
area.
the Google Fi coverage map here. And one thing I want to point out is the Midwest here. And now you see the darkest green is LTE, the darker green is 3G, the lighter green is 2G. And now if you look at Sprint's or T-Mobile's coverage map, which I don't have here because I already had enough tabs open, but there will be holes around the Midwest. T-Mobile has like stripes across part of Iowa showing that T-Mobile has no native coverage in chunks of Iowa. But you notice Google Fi, it is basically filled in.
Right.
And that's the US Cellular factor adding to Sprint and T-Mobile. And you see the same thing in, man, I wish this thing was a touchscreen. You see the same thing in Eastern North Carolina, which I've always kept an eye on as kind of a test of T-Mobile's coverage expansion, and it's been getting better there. But it's not quite this good. This is the addition of US Cellular making Eastern North Carolina a fully covered area.
Right. And also, just to go back to the hardware for just a second, Google, we like the Pixel phones. So if you're looking for a quality phone, that's a good option.
Yeah, we really like the Pixel phones.
Yeah.
The problem with the Pixel phones is really only that they're expensive.
Okay.
And so there's no less expensive phone option. You can go out and you can find, like, you can go on eBay or Gazelle and find yourself a used Nexus 5X. And that way you can get a less expensive Google Fi phone.
Well, if you have a Google Fi, do you buy it through Google? You have to buy it through Google because most people, I assume most people, buy their phones through their carrier and then have a payment plan, if that's correct.
Right. So if you want Google Fi, and we should get to the service plans in a minute.
Okay.
But if you want Google Fi, then you acquire a Google Fi compatible Nexus or Pixel phone by any means.
Right.
Okay. You can go on eBay. You can go on Gazelle. You can go on Google's own website is selling Pixels, but only Pixels. And just as long as it's an unlocked Pixel Nexus 6P or Nexus 5X, it'll work. And Google sells Pixels. See available phones. They sell Pixels. But they sell them for $700. They sell them for $649, $749 up front. Exactly. So and a lot of people in the United States like to pay for their phones month on month. A lot of people want phones cost less than $600. That's kind of the restriction here.
Right.
Yeah. But so now I want to go over to what people love about Google Fi.
Okay.
So in our most recent Reader's Choice survey, which is a big survey of our readers, you see here that Google Fi is way ahead of everybody else.
We couldn't even fit Sprint's final decimal in there.
I know. Sprint's so poor this year in terms of their reputation with our readers. And so we look at why, and we can break this down into a broader range of numbers. And you see, for instance, that people love Google Fi's monthly fees, their coverage, and we discussed how combining the 3 carriers gives them good coverage. Their speed, which is interesting because their speed will be no greater than the 3 carriers that make them up. But there's something else that's going on here that I'll mention in a minute.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the fees, Google Fi isn't the cheapest carrier out there, but has extremely clear fees.
Okay.
In terms of, you pay $20 for your base plan, $15 for each additional line, $10 for each gig of data.
Okay.
Very, very clear. Okay. No
No throttling. No
Well,
limits or anything?
no, you just keep paying $10 for each additional gig of data.
No. It's
There's
how much?
no unlimited
Oh, no,
plan,
no
which
unlimited
is,
plan.
which is an
Okay.
interesting minus for
Right,
Google
right,
Fi.
right.
And that's actually the biggest minus we cite in our review. There's no unlimited plan. It's $10 for each gig of data.
Gotcha.
But on the other hand, it's a very, very clear, simple $10. And people really seem to like that.
Right.
Now, as regards, so coverage, it didn't do well on choice of phones because we said they don't have a lot of phones. In terms of, so there's also a halo effect going on here
Yeah.
involving who signs up for Google Fi, which is that Google Fi doesn't really advertise.
Right.
Okay,
Most people probably don't even know it unless they're like real mobile nerds like we are here. Right.
And so Google Fi's customers tend to be mobile nerds.
Sure.
And they tend to be people who are willing to, for instance, Google Fi does a lot of their support through user forums.
Right.
And they have really informed users on the user forums because they have really informed users.
Okay.
You look here, they have some of the lowest percentage of needed customer service because the Google Fi users are really tech savvy and they're servicing their own phones.
Why do we have an NA for customer service?
That is, it looks like too few people answered
That
that.
question.
Oh, because Google Fi does not have any in-person customer service.
So there's no one you can get on the phone if something's awry.
Well, you can. So in the Google Fi app here, in the Google Fi has no stores.
Okay.
In the Google Fi app here, you can call them.
Okay.
Phone, estimated wait 1 minute.
And hopefully you can get through to your network, and that's not the problem.
And then and then you it also does Wi-Fi calling.
Okay.
So
Okay, yeah.
you know you're at home, you're on Wi-Fi,
Right,
you'll be
right.
able to make the call. But there are no stores.
Right.
And that's another minus for people who like to have kind of an in-person interaction with their carrier.
Right.
So that's probably why the blank there. But if you look at the really low percentage of needed customer service on there, that's because the Google Fi user tends to know what they're doing.
They can fix any obvious problems.
And that,
Yeah.
I think, makes them feel better about the service. You know, I think a lot of the lower ratings tend to come from less tech-savvy users who are frustrated and confused and not getting the support they want.
Right.
And you don't really see that with Google Fi. It's all tech-savvy users.
Right. Facebook, you have a question.
Someone's asking whether you feel Project Fi is secure. They're specifically looking at cloud computing.
I don't feel it's any more or less secure than any other carrier.
Because you're
I
on the
mean,
other networks anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's liable to the SS7 exploit like every wireless carrier.
Right.
You do have the issue of basically how comfortable are you with all of your information going through Google.
Have you noticed any switching problems if you're going between these different networks? If you're going on a drive, you're going through T-Mobile, Sprint, and
That's another way Fi has really improved in the past 2 years.
Okay.
They used to have real problems, for instance, switching on and off of Wi-Fi.
okay.
That smoothed out in the most recent round of reviews. Now, one interesting thing is that it isn't always on the network which is fastest in your location.
Okay.
So it's more likely to, if it grabs a network, it'll hold on to that network until it fails, even if another network is faster.
Sure.
So, and it generally won't try to switch networks within a call.
Now, if on the phone, just for the interface, now do you actually have the bars like we're used to?
Oh, yeah.
On the top of thing. So
But it says Project Fi is the name of your carrier.
Gotcha.
You can download an app called Signal Spy, which will tell you what carrier you're really on.
Right.
And there are some codes you can type into your phone to force yourself over to another carrier if you want to.
Okay,
So that's
interesting.
kind of cool.
Facebook, you have a question.
What would you say to someone who's concerned about Google's long-term commitment to Fi?
I would say that yes, that's a potential problem. Google does cut off.
I'm so mad about Google Reader.
Yeah,
I read
Google.
that. Yeah.
But the thing is, okay, so here's the thing. This Pixel, which is unlocked because Google Fi only works with unlocked phones, also works with every other carrier in the United States.
Right.
And you're not on a contract. And even if Google cuts off service on Fi, they'll let you port your number over to somewhere else.
Sure.
So the worst case scenario is Google announces that they are cutting off support for Fi, and you go to your local Sprint or T-Mobile or AT&T store, you know, And with your existing phone, you don't have to buy a new phone, and you say, hey, Google's cutting off support for Fi, put me on a monthly T-Mobile plan.
Why is Google not pushing this more? Like, why aren't there national ad campaigns for this?
Google doesn't say, but I have a couple of conspiracy theories.
Let's do it. Let's go into it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on the internet. We do conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the conspiracy theory is that part of Google's deal with all of these carriers is that they won't have more than a certain number of users.
Okay.
The carriers do not issue virtual network contracts to companies they will see as a threat to their primary user base.
Right.
They issue these virtual network contracts to fill in niches that they feel aren't being filled by their primary brand. Google is a powerful enough company that it could take away primary users from Sprint and T-Mobile if it wanted to.
Right.
So it probably has given them some assurance that it's not going to push this product particularly hard. It's not going to make it compatible with the Galaxy S8, et cetera, et cetera. It's not going to make it compatible with the iPhone to make Sprint and T-Mobile less nervous.
Right. So why is Google doing this at all? Is it just a niche moneymaker that like fills out some ledger somewhere? Or?
I don't think it particularly makes money.
Yeah.
Even.
Is it a selling point for the Pixel?
I think it's a selling point for the Pixel,
Okay.
but I also think so. Google has Google wants to push the industry forward and wants to influence opinions and show how things can be done. Okay, so they want to get pixels into people's hands because they want to spread the evangelism of pure Google Android and say this is how Android software should be done and make people more dissatisfied with bad Android phones and more demanding of good Android phones. And similarly with the service, I think they're trying to get more pixels into people's hands, but they're also trying to say to the carriers, hey, this is a technology you should be looking into. Look how happy people are with this technology. Look how, exactly. We have a whole bunch of technologies here that you guys should be using and maybe making it exclusive to Android to make Android phones more popular in the United States.
Facebook, you have a question.
How well does Project Fi work internationally?
Project Fi is great international roaming.
Okay.
Yes. Project Fi has, you can roam in 135 countries basically with your plan as if you are local.
So they have contracts with like European carriers or things like that?
They have deals with European carriers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And now what's interesting, I'm trying to see seamless coverage in 135 countries and territories. And
so if you're going to Burundi, you're good.
High-speed data at the same rate you pay as home and calls for 20 cents a minute. And now they are taking, I will tell you, they're taking a soaking on those data rates.
Okay.
Okay.
I would also like to point out, no Canada.
Yes, Canada's there.
If it's an
There
alphabet
it is.
order.
There's your
two
maple leaf.
levels.
Yeah.
Sorry, Canada, you're there. Yeah.
But yeah, calls for 20 cents a minute.
Okay.
Data as if you're at home,
Right.
which is a great deal. It's a great deal. They're kind of taking a soaking on this. But once more, Google wants to show how it should be done. That's really the purpose of this carrier.
Is it worth going to T-Mobile for free pizza on Tuesdays if you had to decide
They
between
don't have
Google
free
Fi?
pizza anymore.
They got rid of that.
What?
They got rid of the Tuesday deals?
They have Tuesday deals, but they're kind of lame nowadays.
Where are they now?
What?
Where are they now?
Oh, they come and go.
Yeah.
They come and go. It's all
free
different
Blockbuster
things.
rentals in Alaska.
Yeah, like Voodoo Rentals. Who uses Voodoo? It's like these horrible brands. I miss the good T-Mobile Tuesdays, which is like the first couple of months. But
do you think?
I mean,
do you think Google should have? Do you think more people should have more free pizza and free stock for their?
I think more people should have free pizza because pizza's delicious.
It is.
Yeah, but yeah, who should use Google Fi as opposed to T-Mobile?
Yeah.
And that's a really good question. So first of all, Google Fi doesn't have unlimited data, and we did a costing out in our review of Google Fi, and we found in this nice, not readable from the camera chart that if you use more than about 4 or 5 gigs of data per line, Google Fi is not going to work for you.
Okay.
Okay, because
Those are hardcore people who don't have Wi-Fi at work or Wi-Fi at home.
No, it's just hardcore people.
Well,
I use 4 or 5 gigs. of data per line. I have Wi-Fi everywhere, but I use 4 or 5 gigs of data per line.
because I have Wi-Fi at home, Wi-Fi at work, Wi-Fi all along my commute. Spotty, but so I have a cap on my limit. I never come close because in my most of the time I'm in a Wi-Fi zone. Yeah.
But yeah, if you use more than 4 or 5 gigs of data per line, Google Fi will not work for you.
Okay.
If you want if you have a family plan where you want to put some people on less expensive phones,
Right.
obviously Google Fi will not work for you.
Right. If you want an iPhone.
Yeah, if you want an iPhone,
Yeah.
Google Fi will not work for you.
Right.
So it's a specific, you're a tech savvy person.
Yeah.
You use at least enough Wi-Fi that you're under about 5 gigs a month, and you think the Pixel is great.
Okay.
Google Fi is for you. You're going to love it.
Okay, so let's see, brass tacks for a specific niche of Android user, Pixel user. This might be something who doesn't use a ton of data. This might be something and you're in the right area. This might be something to consider.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as our Reader's Choice shows, the people who do get it,
Yep.
who are generally these informed, tech-savvy people who have thought it through, they love it.
Pete, anything else? I think we're good to go. Hey, everybody, this is great. We'll see you here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, as we do every day here on the Facebook. Be groovy. Please.